Watch them run, watch them fall, watch them try to catch a ball. Olympics, Special Olympics.
So, after initially being set up a year ago, we're finally at the Equestria Games. And it's a Spike episode. Interesting choice. We begin with Rainbow Dash basically admitting that they wrote themselves into a corner with Rainbow Falls, and now the prevailing attitude seems to be, well, this is really happening now, so let's just get it over with as quickly as possible. Scootaloo sums up the spirit of the competition by saying that even if they don't win anything, there's still the opportunity to be awesome. A sentiment that Rainbow Dash echoes, and then says, okay, but really, we are here to win, so let's do a lot of that too. After they arrive in the Crystal Empire, Spike finds out that the Crystal Ponies see him as a hero after he helped save the Crystal Heart from Sombra. Even Cadence is bowing down to him. Wait, why is Cadence bowing to him? She was there! In fact, she contributed just as much to saving the Crystal Heart as he did. Probably more when you consider that she had pushed herself past the point of exhaustion keeping the protective barrier up as long as she did. And it's not even like he's a stranger, he's her sister-in-law's personal assistant. So why the hell is she bowing down to him? Oh right, because she has nothing else to do. In any case, it turns out they want Spike to light the flame during the opening ceremony. Not only would it be a great honor for the Crystal Empire, it's also a special occasion because no dragon has ever done it before. He agrees, but then chokes in front of the crowd. Luckily, Twilight has everything covered, but later admits what happened as her friends all look genuinely concerned for Spike. However, he's now convinced that he can start fires with his mind, which gets pretty painful to watch. Thankfully, Twilight immediately tells him what happened instead of letting it drag out for the rest of the episode. Though, unfortunately, between this and the Scootaloo Rainbow Dash trade-off at the beginning, this episode does suffer a bit from repeating its dialogue. After the opening ceremony, we then learn that all unicorns, and I assume the alicorns as well, have to go through a magic disabling field while the actual competition is going on. This is done entirely to prevent cheating, and I'm sure will have nothing to do with the story later. Feeling wounded, Spike goes to Miss Harshwinny to look at her ass and see if there's anything else he can do. Now, as far as everyone else is concerned, the flame got lit, Spike is still a national hero, and they can all go on with their day, but it's important because he knows what really happened. Miss Harshwinny responds by sarcastically foreshadowing the Equestria Girls sequel, but it gives him an idea. After the aerial relay race, Spike volunteers to sing since he knows the Ponyville anthem by heart. Unfortunately, Rainbow Dash just got beat by Spitfire and he doesn't know the Cloudsdale anthem. Now, I've complained before about songs that are intentionally bad also having the side effect of just being painful to listen to. But you know what? This actually works. Unlike, say, the Cutie Mark Crusader theme song, this doesn't sound like Kathy Westlock singing badly on purpose. Instead, it sounds exactly like what it's supposed to be. Spike honestly doing his absolute best while also making up the words as he goes and feeling embarrassed as hell the entire time. Usually when a song feels awkward, the characters will either pretend that it's awesome anyway, or the singer will be the only one who doesn't notice that it's bad. But this time, the one singing knows exactly what's wrong. He wants to be here even less than we do, and it gets worse for him the longer it keeps going, causing his performance to get progressively worse at the same time. Maybe it was that acknowledgement or the subtle progression in the performance that made all the difference, but this was brilliant, and I found myself laughing the entire time. Incidentally, my favorite part is probably the line about Cloudsdale having nice trees. And you know who I feel really bad for here? The Griffins. I mean, they came in third place and we barely got to see them do anything. Also, why is Twilight's brother wearing his captain's armor from the Canterlot Royal Guard? He's the prince of the Crystal Empire now. Well, anyway, with that ordeal over with, Spike hides in his room for the rest of the games, but Twilight puts on her mom voice and makes him watch the final event. Ice archery. Okay, truth be told, I really wasn't all that bothered that we skipped over most of the games until now. Seriously, ice archery? What other events did we miss out on? However, one of the athletes trips over himself and accidentally fires an arrow into a cloud passing overhead, freezing it into a giant icy fuckball of doom that now threatens the entire stadium. And apparently, there's not enough time to lower the magic disabling field. Well, that can only mean one thing. This looks like a job for Spike!
Fuck yeah! Coming again to save the motherfucking day, yeah!
This is, without exaggeration, the single most badass thing he's ever done. But it turns out Spike doesn't feel that way. He's still putting himself down over what happened earlier, and insists that he didn't do anything special because anyone else would have done the same thing if they could breathe fire. It's worth mentioning that Spike's feelings aren't entirely focused on himself, but rather, with the knowledge that so many look up to him, he feels like he let everyone down by embarrassing himself earlier. But Twilight tells him that simply isn't true, that he's the only one disappointed in himself, and that doesn't take away from the fact that he still did something really great. Now, those of you who've been listening to me for a while will probably notice that this sounds awfully similar to a certain fan fiction that I reviewed a while ago. I actually debated over whether I should say anything, but the similarity is so strong that I just can't ignore it. And yet, I find myself having the complete opposite reaction between that story and this episode. The main difference is that in the 7th Star, Spike was freaking out over something that he had completely made up in his own head, whereas here, he freaks out over something that actually happened and had a visible effect on everyone else as well. He is still jumping to conclusions a little, but this time it's based on something a lot more concrete. For that reason, I stand by what I said before. I don't think the idea worked very well in that fan story, but I do think that it works here. Anyway, with that done, Spike is given one more chance to show off to the crowd, lighting fireworks for the closing ceremony, with the lesson being that no matter how much you accomplish, no matter how much praise you get, none of it matters if you don't believe in yourself. You know, the whole believe in yourself moral gets tossed around a lot in kid shows, but usually it's given before the main character does something worthwhile. That isn't the case here. Spike doesn't have to prove himself to anyone else, he's already done that. But he's also in a position where we can understand why he feels like crap about himself, because he did fuck up in front of everyone on multiple occasions, and he must now learn to forgive himself while also embracing the fact that he's done something good. Ultimately, it's about finding balance. You don't want to be some douchey braggart who's convinced that you can do no wrong, but at the same time, beating yourself up over an honest mistake doesn't help either. I think most of this episode speaks for itself, so I'm just going to point out a few other things that I noticed. I like how Twilight looks unsure about sitting next to Celestia, Luna, and Cadence. Also, that look Celestia gives her when she starts rooting for Ponyville. I really wish we'd seen more of this kind of stuff throughout the season to show Twilight adjusting to her new role, especially since the whole princess thing is about to get even more real after this episode. I also like how when Spike freezes during the opening ceremony, everyone else looks worried except for Luna, who just yawns. In the end, there are a couple of ways to look at this episode. Obviously, it's not the Equestria Games episode that everyone was hoping for. Back in Season 3, I said that if we didn't actually see the Equestria Games, then games ponies play would end up being completely pointless. Now, this does technically meet that condition, but let's not kid ourselves. There was no reason to set up something so elaborate just for a Spike episode. Now, some might argue that what makes the show great is its ability to subvert your expectations. And that's true, but what that means is that an episode can still deliver what it promises while offering a unique point of view. One of the best examples of this, which I might have mentioned in a previous video, is Suited for Success, which has Rarity making dresses for a pony fashion show. And the entire episode is about that, but it also fleshes out Rarity as a character for the first time, and it makes her relatable on an adult level. By comparison, Equestria Games feels like a bait and switch. The result isn't bad, but it's fucking weird considering that they spent an entire year leading up to this. I've heard some people defend the decision by saying it's impossible to make an interesting sports episode. Now, I am not a sports fan by any measure, so I do get where people with this point of view are coming from, but I'm sorry, after saying one of the show's greatest strengths is its ability to take a seemingly uninteresting topic and make it relatable, it feels a little backwards to have people turn around and say, well, no, you can't make an episode about that because, ew, sports. Am I the only one who sees the connection between this attitude and the people who still avoid the show just because of its girly elements? I mean, you're in a fandom where keeping an open mind and giving something a fair shot in spite of itself is part of the whole point. Saying they shouldn't focus on the games just because you don't like sports is like saying they should get rid of Rarity just because you don't care about fashion. Seriously, this was my first Perfect 10 episode and the reason I became a fan of the show in the first place. Now, if they actually made a sports episode and it still sucked, then you would have a reason to, oh, right, that was a thing this season. Huh. So yeah, if you're one of the people who got upset because Equestria Games has almost nothing to do with the actual games, I honestly don't blame you. I think you have every right to feel that way. However, having acknowledged all of the problems with the setup, like I said earlier, I still don't think it's a bad episode. It tries to have a decent enough payoff for all the specific events that were built up beforehand, and if you judge it purely for what it is, what we get here is a damn good Spike episode. Frankly, it's something the show needs a lot more of. Only next time, please just give us more good Spike episodes instead of spending a whole year building up to one. Equestria Games gets an 8 out of 10.
Oh, we're the Wonderbolts and we're super fast and we're from Cloudsdale, which is a part of Equestria that we like best, and we're proud and we're fast and we like it because it really has nice trees.